Hey Zelda fans, have you ever wanted to eat a house? To summon Yiga soldiers at will, no matter where you are in the world? Or to use shrine equipment like with everyday Zonai tech? Well, if so, you're in luck, because as data miners have found out, all these things and more are indeed possible via save editing thanks to unused inventory items. So in this video, we're going to look at all of them and show you how it all functions in game. Let's go! Starting with some dungeon objects which are actually usable by Link in game, with the first being Dungeon Object Beam Device Static. This is a beam emitter used in shrines and one that Link can carry around too. If you do, it acts very strangely indeed. For one thing, if you take it out, it doesn't get placed down when Link throws the item. No, it just instantly appears where it's standing when he takes it out. Then, it either sticks around if you drop the item, or vanishes if you put it away. It also has a tendency to get Link stuck too. The item is solid right away, so if you don't walk away a bit before putting it down, you might get stuck inside it. Regardless, it's mostly stable, can be sold to shops or to NPCs, and can be used for cooking. So, it's a pretty neat one to have, which sadly cannot be said about the next item. Named Dungeon Object IR Beam Device Static Beam, it's also tied to dungeon beam emitters, except in this case, it's a tripwire used to activate them. In theory, it will look like a red laser beam that activates when something crosses it. Unfortunately, that's where things break, because if you try to put the item down, the game will crash on the spot. Presumably, this needs an event tied to it to function, and you don't get one of those simply by using it in game. Hence why you can cook with it, or sell it to NPCs. Trying to actually use it in game will just crash the game there and then. There's also Assassin Rock Ball too. This is a giant ball Master Koga uses in his boss battles, and it's a very interesting item for sure. For one thing, the game was utterly crazy if you tried to hold it like any other material, since it's designed to shatter upon contact, and Link holding the item is counted as contact. So, the second he takes it out of the inventory, gets caught in a loop of exploding till he drops it down. This doesn't do damage thankfully, but it does push him all around the place and plays an ear-piercing sound. As a result, it's pretty much useless for anything other than comic effect. You can't get close enough to a cooking pot to cook with it, and it shatters the second you try to put it down. Either way, enough with the dungeon items now, on to another category. Namely, the house rooms, which are indeed inventory items for some reason. What's more, they're very interesting items indeed, since they don't interact with the ground properly. Instead, they'll fall right through it, leaving Link holding nothing in the process. This isn't the end of the world as far as cooking goes, since they'll still work in that sense, but it does make taking them out a bit harder than it could be. Still, they work fine if you try to hold them while gliding, and once you're in the world, they work fine too. For example, if you place them down, you can build a house anywhere. Gerudo Town, Lookout Landing, Korok Forest, game just runs fine. It's pretty impressive really, especially given how much Breath of the Wild lagged in similar situations. You can also build a house in places the game shouldn't let you build one too, like the depths, shrines, dungeons, boss battles and minigames. So, if you want to build a condo for Gandalf, or put a nice cottage in the middle of a construct factory, go ahead, it works fine. It's genuinely impressive really, and proof positive that Nintendo's decision to go with a purely physics-based system was indeed the right move for the game. Of course, this does get kinda weird if used in small spaces. The game can't always fit these rooms in, so they'll go crazy, pushing Link around and clipping through walls. It's funny to look at, though not very useful, and may make getting around extremely difficult. Still, for those that want a guide, here are all the house items and what they correlate to as inventory items. Either way, onto some of the strangest items in Tears of Kingdom. Since somehow you can now get Yiga Clan members as items. No, we're not joking. Apparently, the entire population of the Yiga Clan hideout are all valid items that can be stored in inventory and taken out at any time. Of course, they're a bit strange as items. If you try to take them out normally, they'll fall through the floor and despawn like the house rooms did. So, you can't hold a foot soldier or blade master like an oversized action figure. but you can summon them if you hold them while gliding, where they'll fall to the ground and become normal NPCs. So if you want to airdrop Yiga Clan members into towns, that's actually possible without using any mods. And you can cook them too. They don't have any effects by default, and they don't get listed in the recipe book, but they are valid materials for cooking nonetheless. So yeah, you can officially make Soylent Green in a Zelda game and have Link eat it. You can also sell them to NPCs too. You know, in case selling Zora eggs into slavery wasn't bad enough. But enough about that, how do they work in game? Well, it's kind of random. You see, unlike other NPCs, these aren't very stable. As a result, it's a complete toss-up whether summoning one will crash the game, or whether they'll spawn in just fine. Presumably, their file names being this long means they could override other inventory data and cause various bugs as a result of that. Regardless, the normal ones, NPC Assassin Junior and NPC Assassin Middle, seem to be the most stable and never crash when summoned. These provide foot soldiers and blade masters you can't talk to, and you can summon about 20 of them before the old ones start disappearing. Still, the others are more interesting since they actually have dialogue and interactions. For example, NPC Assassin Junior Azito 2, NPC Assassin Junior Azito 3, and NPC Assassin Junior Azito 4 are shopkeepers from the Yiga Clan hideout and will buy items from you when summoned. By adding them as items, you can get mobile shops to sell materials and armour to at the drop of a hat. Definitely quite cool and probably useful for challenge runs. Meanwhile, NPC Assassin Middle Azito 1 is the Blade Master running the minigame in the Yiga Clan hideout. If you summon him, you'll be able to start the minigame from anywhere in the world, warping right back to hideout in the process. An instant teleport at will has all sorts of clever uses in a title like this one. Regardless, the best use for these guys is definitely the meme potential. Want a Yiga arm in a shrine? Sounds good, go ahead. Want to see Yiga meet Ganondorf the Demon Dragon? That's cool, all up to you. Heck, you could even do things that drop them into the title screen or intro sequence too. After all, those are also maps you can play via hacks or glitches, and these guys are valid items there too. So yeah, you can get a mobile Yiga army to summon at your beck and call. Pretty cool, isn't it? Either way, onto a few weird weapons now. Like say, an alternate version of the already unused Zelda's torch and a wooden mop used by certain NPCs as a weapon. Yes, there's technically a master mop in the game. But we'll get back to that later, since the other version of Zelda's torch is even weirder than the regular one. Named Demo 910 Torch, it has no icon, 0 listed attack power, and the properties of a sword rather than a torch. So you can chop down trees with it, or cut grass with it, you know, in case you want to use a torch for gardening purposes. And it only gets weirder from there. If you drop it, it becomes a weapon with a string of question marks for a name and cannot be picked up again. You just hear the weapon sound and that's it. And the same thing goes if you try to display it on a weapon stand. It appears there, but it can't be picked up again, sort of like the Goron and Construct weapons from the last video. Meanwhile, fusing items to it works strangely too. Not only is the icon messed up, but the actual fused material just floats in front of it too. It looks bizarre to say the least, and only adds to its weird charm. There's also Weapon Sword 043 Set Afire too. This one is basically identical to the normal version of Zelda's torch minus the icon. You can drop it and pick it up just fine, it can be displayed on a weapon stand just fine, and fused materials work just fine with it too. So yeah, we've got 3 near identical unused torches in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Damn, Nintendo really liked this idea, didn't they? Regardless, onto the Master Mop now, or more precisely, the mop used by Monster Control Squad NPCs. Sadly, it's much the same as any other mop. Oh sure, the icon and fuse look a bit weird, but that's about it. So, it's more a collector's piece than anything else. But it's not just melee weapons here, no, there are a few unused shields too, namely the ones from Sell Me Spot in Hebra. Yet, the shields in that area are actually separate ones from the rest of the game, with the main difference being that these wooden shields are actually fireproof. Okay, that's not technically true, they can still catch on fire, they just can't be destroyed by it. So, you can safely use them in scorching climates and they'll work just fine. Presumably, this was done so you couldn't set a Selmy's collection on fire by simply throwing a ruby or glittercorn around. So, if you feel like using a wooden shield in Eldin or the Fire Temple, These could be good options for that. They'll still break if damaged by enemies and obstacles, but they'll at least be usable in the scorching temperatures of said regions. Either way, that's all the unused equipment covered. On to a few last items we missed out on now, such as the default paraglider fabric. Named Object Substitute Cloth Default, it's the pattern used for a paraglider when you first get it. There's not much of a reason for it to exist, but it does have a nice icon for the menu. It's also accepted by the die shop too. Yep, despite the default paraglider always being an option, reworking the paraglider will have them take this cloth away from you too. This doesn't really change anything, but it's neat to see. There's also Oct Object Stone T-Box too. This is a fake treasure chest used as a decoy by Treasure Octoroks. Sadly, it's virtually useless. There's no collision for this thing, and it will quickly fly through the ground the minute it's summoned. There's also Object Cushion too. This is a cushion used to display jewellery in the Starlight Memory store with a few neat properties of its own. For one thing, it's labelled as a ruby circlet like the item to sit on top of it. This means it has a description for said item but not the icon. It also has a 500 rupee sale price too. As a result, you can quickly get money by selling it since shopkeepers can't take it away. Finally, it also floats in the air too. This doesn't really do anything, but it's funny to look at and makes for a goofy visual. There are also some interesting hidden items too. These are used in game but aren't actually visible to a player, like Object Warp. This item looks like the map icon in the ability wheel and is what gives Link the ability to teleport via the Puripad, and you usually get it by failing to open the door at the end of Temple of Time. Once that happens, Roru unlocks the ability to warp and the item is added to your inventory. So why don't you ever see it? Well, it's all because of another special parameter the item usually has. Basically, there's a property called Pouch Special Deal which controls how items are added to inventory, and in this case the value is set to not push the pouch. As you might expect, this tells the game to give the player the item without showing the prompt or listing it in the inventory. Which is also how other features get unlocked too. For example, when Robbie unlocks Hyrule Compendium and album photos on the Puripad, the game gives you 2 more icons to enable this. These items are Object Picture Book and Object Album respectively. Neither of these have a description, though the Compendium does in fact have a name listed for it. And the same goes with Sheikah Sensor and its upgraded version. There are also some interesting food and display items in the game too. For example, boar meat is the ID for the spit roasts used by enemies in camps, at least prior to you collecting said meat. It's most identical to a seared steak, but it is neat to have nonetheless. Similarly, the fruits and vegetables displayed by NPCs are also unique items not found elsewhere in the game. These share most of the same properties as the standard counterparts, though with a few twists. For example, the vegetables grown by farmers are impossible to cook with or put down, and this display version of a ruby summons a Goron NPC regardless where it is in the world. Interestingly though, you can still fuse them to other objects or build things with them via Ultra Hand. So, despite them being possible to pick up, they still function in every other sense too. Finally, we have an item that's technically not unused, but is unused as far as overworld interaction is concerned. That being a huge crystallised charge. Normally, these are only ever obtained via treasure chests. As a result, you'll see the icon in the box and that's it. But they do have a 3D model too. Yet, if they're modded into your inventory and taken out like a material, you'll find they have a fully 3D model when they're seen in the game world. It's even functional too, giving you that many charges when collected like their smaller counterparts do. They're also pretty tough too. Sure, you can't move them with Ultra Hand, but nothing else can move them either. As a result, they work as perfect platforms to build contraptions on, or to use as the base for a house. Either way, those are all the wacky impossible items in Tears of Kingdom. From house pieces to Yiga Clan members, exploding rock balls to anti-gravity treasure chests, there's a lot of weird stuff to experiment with for anyone willing to look into the game and its files. We hope you found it interesting hearing how they all worked and seeing them tested out in game. If so, give the video a like, subscribe to our channel if you want to see more, then leave your thoughts in the comments below or over on our Discord server today.